Hello, welcome to a new episode of Conversations 101. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Sabin. She's a teacher at Lakewood High School, but she's more than just a teacher at the high school. So Autumn, one of the first questions, and I think this is a question that most people ask of teachers, is what made you want to be a teacher?
Well, I think I always liked school as a place to go, and I think that by the time I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, I was really passionate about art making, but I also really liked the difference of an art classroom environment than like an academic classroom environment, just like listening to music, creating, going to a teacher, to look at work together, to talk about it, to make adjustments. I really like that kind of instant feedback, that whatever you were working on was always a conversation. And so I felt like that was a place I wanted to spend my time.
You know what it sounds like? It reminds me of Marshall McLuhan's The Media is the Message. So the media, in your case, the artwork, is incorporating the whole message of interacting with the students.
I would say probably every week. I have those kinds of conversations with myself, or sometimes with my mom, or with my son, or my friends. But it usually doesn't really have anything to do with kids. It usually has to do with the people that are making decisions, or the people that I have to work with.
Now, a lot of teachers come in with high expectations, very optimistic about what they're doing, and sometimes within the first 3 years, sometimes 5 years, some teachers get a little bit disappointed and discouraged and find out that, maybe this isn't for me. Did the real act of teaching, being in the classroom, doing what you wanted to do, working with the students, was there any time where you kind of had to give it a second thought and say, maybe I really don't want to do this?
I think even more so peers, more so than administrators. What? There's not a whole lot of, there's big picture stuff that administrators affect, but I find that most of the administrators I work with are really student-based, and they want to do things based around students and what is best for students. And I find that sometimes teachers forget that, and they forget what they're there for.
So in other words, in some ways, instead of being in a student-oriented classroom, we're still really working out of a teacher-oriented classroom. And could this be affected by standardized testing, which is a big issue, I know, nationally in the United States? Could that be one of the factors that make the other teachers have that kind of,
Yeah, possibly. Me being an art teacher, I don't necessarily, there's not a standardized test for us in this state yet. Some states do have that, but I don't really, I don't have to deal with that. And I understand that can be, that bogs down some of my colleagues, but possibly. It's not really something that's, in the forefront of my realm. I teach an AP course that has, basically a standardized test at the end, and I make sure the content's covered, but that's not the part that's important to me. Because even if students don't do well on that test or do great on that test, that doesn't mean that I can't find a way for them to become passionate about our city, passionate about art, or a specific artist. I feel like learning is life enriching, so.
The key word I'm picking up is passion. And I think I was a former teacher myself, and just speaking anecdotally about my own experiences, I think children, students, kids, they have radar. They have that radar that senses that you're real, and you'll hear them talking to each other. She's real. He's real. He's for real. When you have that passion, do you have is there anyone that influences you? Do you have any other teacher or person or writer, artist that influences you in what you do as a teacher?
I try to surround myself with people that fuel my fire, that are much more they're going to be positive influences or speak positively to maybe my challenges. But I think that my students are probably my greatest influencers. What is important to them is what becomes important to me. So it changes.
Let me ask you this question also. When I left teaching after 36 years, I realized there was a change, a paradigm shift in the way people looked at teaching. When I started, it was a noble profession that you stayed with as a career. Now it seems that the younger teachers coming in look at teaching as a ladder to going into administration or a guidance where they can probably make more money and do less work. Do you see that now?
Well, sure. I think that I've taught university, and so pre-service teachers are people that I've taught, and I think for a lot of them, it's been a fallback. Maybe they weren't successful in, an engineering department or, something that takes some really high-level math skills and things like that that really aren't competitive in the United States. Our students aren't producing on that level as far as like other countries are. And so they really can't hack it at the university level. And so they're like, oh, well, I'm good enough, so maybe I could teach. Or that's somebody that, maybe they related to, or they found most people have a teacher that they really remember. And so, that has influence for them. And I think that maybe that's a reason why they go back to it, is because most of us have had teachers. Well, one of the things that's really important for me is, one of our social issues in the city of Cleveland is that we've had brain drain. And so one thing that's really important to me just through field trips and things like that is just getting students out and exploring our city. I use public transportation no matter how big our groups are so that students can figure out how to get from the west side to the east side or vice versa and, experience the arts for themselves and seeing that there's a lot of really inexpensive ways to have those experiences. And through that, I've just met a lot of people that are involved in city planning, activism, and just, getting involved with people that I like. I like that they have that same kind of idea about our city. And so students just get brought along, and invited to join. And I think that they just catch that passion and they see that there's a lot happening in the city that is really good that maybe doesn't get enough of a voice for itself.